Welcome back to Today in Combat, and boy, do we have a lot to get into. Of course, we're going to go through our biggest winners and biggest losers from UFC Mexico. Kavanagh took down Brandon Moreno. Cheeto lost again. Imanol Rodriguez on the rise. I also want to talk to you about UFC Miami because this thing is fucking stacked. And it's got a lot to do with our main topic of the day. Jiri Prochazka and Carlos Ulberg are going to be fighting for a vacant light heavyweight belt. We're going to dig into that. But you know what that means? It means Alex Pereira has relinquished that belt. And presumably he will be moving up to heavyweight. Now, we kind of saw this one coming. A couple weeks ago at UFC Houston, Dana White in his post-fight press conference alluded to the fact that they're going to do whatever they can for Alex Pereira. He's earned that right. And then just a week later, this fight gets announced. The headline UFC Miami, which was already stacked. Already stacked. But even more so now that Jiri Prochazka and Carlos Ulberg are there. But the question remains, what's next for Alex Pereira? And a lot of rumblings are around this UFC White House card. And one Jon Jones, of course, is the name that has always been attached to Alex Pereira when it comes to that fight card. And it feels like it's getting closer. I don't know how close it's going to be. It feels like Jon Jones is the missing piece there. We got to get that contract signed. He wants to be there. Is the money going to be right? Will the UFC re-honor that $30 million they offered for him for Tom Aspinall? Or is he going to take a pay cut to be on this card? Who fucking knows? But Alex Pereira is going for his third fucking belt. What a legend this guy is. Unprecedented. There's no way he's not going to be fighting for a belt. Just to be clear, on the upfront and obvious, this guy's not going up there to take on Volkov or Sergey Spivak. He's going to be fighting for presumably an interim belt, I assume, or maybe a vacant belt. If they do end up stripping Tom Aspinall, who knows what that guy's timeline is. Sucks for Tommy Aspinall. But Alex Pereira is going for a third fucking belt. What a legend this guy is. So if it's not Jon Jones, probably Cyril Gane. But let's hope it's Jon Jones because that fight is just so much bigger, better. I know Cyril Gane has got a little bit, it feels like his profile rose a little bit after the 4 minutes that he spent in the octagon with Tom Aspinall. But let's not forget, a fight before that, he lost to Alexander Volkov. Like, Cyril Gane by no means has been a world beater. Jon Jones beat him in less than 3 minutes or whatever it was. Like, I like that fight. I think it's interesting. But Jon Jones is the big one. That's the cherry on top, especially for a White House card where there's been so many rumors floating around it. That is the main event. That is the perfect main event. Both sides are A-sides. Jon Jones, Alex Pereira. I love it. And that leads us into UFC 327 in Miami because goddamn is this card stacked. I mean, headlined by Jiri Prochazka, Carlos Ulberg, and it did feel like the right time for Alex Pereira to get out. Let's be clear about that. There wasn't really anything at 205 for him. You could have made a third fight with Jiri Prochazka. Would have still been big. The people are still going to rally around Jiri Prochazka just because who he is. But there wasn't a lot of buzz around Alex Pereira and Carlos Ulberg. I was hyping that story. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I've been hyping the storyline of Carlos Ulberg and Alex Pereira just because of the Izzy connection, that city kickboxing connection. I felt like they could have built a story out of it. But there was not a ton of hype around Carlos Ulberg. Like people aren't pushing for him. They weren't pushing for that fight. If anything, Jiri Prochazka, again, after getting knocked out twice, was getting the nod when it came to who's next for Alex Pereira at the 205 division. So I like that he stepped away. He's moving up. We got a third belt coming for Alex Pereira, meaning Jiri Prochazka and Carlos Ulberg are going to go at it for the interim belt. The vacant belt. But that's not where this card ends. This UFC Miami card is fucking stacked. Joshua Van Tatsuro Taira, I love that fight. Who knows what the timeline for Pantoja is? I feel like he waits on the sideline until he gets his shot. But if he needed a little extra time, I don't hate Tatsuro Taira standing in there. And I think Tatsuro Taira is a real fucking problem. We saw him dispose of Brandon Moreno. Now, Kavanagh also just beat Brandon Moreno, so hasn't aged as well. But at the time, nobody does that to Brandon Moreno. gets his back. Tatsuro Taira, a master of the back, and just beat down Brandon Moreno until the ref had to pull him off. It's going to be interesting for Josh Fan. And it's the same sort of question marks that we had going into the Pantoja fight for Josh Fan. And unfortunately, in that fight, we didn't get to see that we didn't get any sort of a clarity on what it looks like if he gets taken down by a high-level grappler, because that's what Tatsuro Taira is, and that's what Alexander Pantoja are. And I always said, and I've been saying this for a while, Tatsuro Taira is the worst matchup for Alexander Pantoja in the division. I think same is true for Joshua Van in this case. The reason he's the worst for Alexander Pantoja is because I think he's the only one that can match his grappling. For Josh Van, you gotta fucking grapple. Tatsuro Taira is gonna get to you and get to your back. He does it to literally fucking everybody, including Brandon Moreno. So interesting spot. First defense for Josh Van against Tatsuro Taira. This one's going down in Miami. But then you got like the likes of Beneil Dariush, Manuel Torres. Manuel Torres coming off of Grant Dawson knockout, I believe, in the first round. Beneil Dariush has been up and down in his last couple. Obviously, BSD put his lights out. Before that, he turned back Hanato Moicano. Mateusz Gamrot, like, it feels like there's not a fight on this card where you're not like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen there. Or, ooh, I know that guy. There's no names on here where you're like, who the fuck is that? Other than maybe the first fight on the card. So Mateusz Gamrot, Esteban Rivas, if you don't know him, a fucking madman. Literally, fight of the night, the last 3 fights. Daniel Zellhuber had a 3-round war at the Sphere, Noche UFC, then had a fucking absolute banger with Nasrat Haqparast last time out. Blondie from Shoot to Box, Elvis Brenner. The guy's a fucking fighter. Interesting spot for Mateusz Gamrot. Obviously, he's coming off the Charles Oliveira loss. He's looking to hold on right now because Esteban Rivas is unranked, and this is a get right or get gone type of fight for him. And then I love this one. If you watch my last matchmaking video, I matched up Josh Hokit with Sergey Spivak. Because I was just, my point being, it didn't even necessarily have to be Sergey Spivak just available. My point being is, like, we got to get some of these heavyweights that we're at least halfway hyped about and start pushing them up the rankings. I don't need to see them beating up cans. Josh Hokit, since entering the UFC, has made a name for himself. Love him or hate him, made a name for himself. I said the same thing about Walter Walker. Let's get him in some top 5 heavyweight matchups because there's not a big gap. It doesn't feel like from like 5 to 10, they're all kind of the same. It's a bunch of guys that you can't make a title fight with. Sergey Spivak, Martin Tabora, Curtis Blades, I think, is probably the toughest matchup of them all. When you get the likes of Josh Hokit, we'll see how he handles it. I would have rather Sergey Spivak in this situation, but that's what we're looking for. We need heavyweight back, especially if you're injecting Alex Pereira into the division. It feels like Jon Jones is probably a one and done, so you're going to lose him anyways. But when Tom Aspinall comes back, you're going to get Josh Hokit up there, hopefully, if he can beat Curtis Blades, regardless if he loses. Keep him in the top 10. Fucking Tai Tuivasa's in the top 10, 15. He's dropped 6 fights in a row, Keep him in the top 10. Keep pushing him with some top names. Walter Walker, and then hopefully Gable Stevenson come UFC White House time too. If Jon Jones is going to be on it, you think Gable Stevenson could get there too, just because they are run together. Under that, Kevin Holland, Randy Rude Boy Brown, Patricio Pitbull, Aaron Pico. I love this fight too. A Bellator matchup. The bad boys from Bellator, Patricio Pitbull, Aaron Pico, of course, debut didn't go as he'd like, got spinning back elbowed by Lerone Murphy. Patricio Pitbull's 1-1 right now. Beat Dan Ige, lost to Yair Rodriguez. We'll see who's the better man. Patricio's older. Feels like Pico's chin is a little loose. But a Bellator matchup. I'm happy with it. Dominic Reyes, Johnny Walker. Another light heavyweight fight. Johnny Walker's coming off of a massive win over Zhang Ming Yang. a surpriser. I thought Jean Mignet was going to KO Johnny Walker. We've seen his chin be tested a couple times. And then Dominic Reyes, god damn it, he was streaking. He was streaking. And then he ran into the man that's headlining this card in Carlos Ulberg and got his lights put out. A tough one. We're probably in like the prelims right now. And we got Asmat Murzakanov and Paulo Costa. That's how fucking good this card is. That's an undefeated man at 205. And Paulo Costa is entering the division. Asmat Murzakanov is a bad motherfucker. Not huge for the division either. I think it's a good starting point for Paulo Costa because he's not one of these 6'4" light heavyweights. He's probably 5'11", but the dude fucking cracks and his hands are filthy. Interesting to see how that plays out. Tatiana Suarez, Lupi Godinez. Get right fight for Tatiana Suarez. Last fight, obviously, she fought Zhang Weili. Didn't go her way. I think Lupi's streaking. I don't really know. And I don't feel like looking right now, but good fight. Cub Swanson. Anytime Nate Landwehr's in a fight, I fucking love it. Kelvin Gastelum, Vicente Luque. And then, like, literally, until you get here, Crisara Alvidrez, maybe, and Francisco Prado, you know everybody. There's a name at least on one side, if not both, that you're like, fucking good fight. It was a 13-fight card. This thing is fucking stacked. And just a little key in on these guys. Crisara Alvidrez is making his UFC debut. He got a knockout on the Contender Series. Francisco Prado he's like Marvin Vettori. Just hard man to put out. I think he's like 1-5 in his UFC stint, losing to guys like Jake Matthews and Daniel Zellhuber. But what a fucking card we got in Miami. I could not be more pumped for this. This fight in particular, Patricio Pitbull, Aaron Pico, fan-freaking-tastic. Curtis Blaze, Josh Hokett, cannot wait. Josh Van Tatsuro Taira, Carlos Ulberg, Jiri Prochazka. It's freaking Slap City. It is Slap City. But those aren't the only fights that we got announced. There's another one. When we were talking about Slap City, welterweights are back, boys. We got Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos freaking Prates going down May 2nd in Perth. We absolutely needed this. First of all, aside from Carlos Prates and Jack Della Maddalena, we also got Sean Brady, Joaquin Buckley. I've been saying, where the hell are these welterweights? You know, we had that big tournament at the end of 2025 at MSG, and then the following week in Qatar with Ian Gary and Bilal Muhammad. I was waiting for these to start getting announced, and it seems like they finally have. We're getting Carlos Prates and Jack Della Maddalena. That is strictly playing out on the feet in a certified fucking banger. Two of the best boxers in the division. Obviously, the power edge you assume is on Carlos Prates' side. But don't forget about Jack Della Maddalena. I know he just got stomped by Islam Makhachev. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But this dude has got hands of steel. What he did to Bilal Muhammad, what he did to Gilbert Burns, dude's fucking nasty. So don't sleep on Jack. And he's never lost outside of Islam Makhachev in the two fights that started his career. I can't imagine he's been KO'd. I don't believe he has. But Carlos Prates is a guy that can be your first. Let's be clear about that. But also, we got outboxed by Ian Gary. So I'm not saying it's impossible. A really massive fight. High stakes, especially for Carlos Prates. If he can get over Jack Della Maddalena, that dude's knocking on a title shot right there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Michael Morales. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Ian Gary. There was a lot of rumblings that was the fight, Ian Gary, Islam Makhachev, that the UFC was looking to make. Some weird news out of Ali Abdul, you know what I'm talking about. Ali Abdulaziz today, I believe, saying that Islam's they're in the works for a massive fight for Islam, and he said it's not Ian Gary, which kind of threw a wrench into everything. Could it be Michael Morales? Is that bigger than Ian Gary? I don't think so, personally. Maybe it's just Ali talking shit. Maybe he's still trying to shove Kamaru Usman in there. Who fucking knows? Thank God that's not going down. But But it seems like we're going to start getting the middleweights back in action, which I freaking absolutely love. Because we needed it. Or sorry, welterweights, not middleweights. The middleweights are going. Don't forget, we got Joe Pyfer, Israel Adesanya coming. But yeah, the UFC is on fire right now. I cannot wait for a lot of these fights to come up. But that doesn't mean they haven't already been on fire, because they put Lenore Kavanagh in a spot that I thought was too fucking big. They put him in a spot against Brandon Moreno after he got KO'd the fight before. Virtual number one contender fight. I know it's probably not actually, just because Alexander Pantoja is still sitting around. But if you look at the other guys at the top of that division, obviously Tatsuro Taira is going to be fighting for the belt. We just went over that at UFC 327. Obviously, you assume Pantoja is going to wait, see what happens there, and then just, he earned that title shot. He earns an immediate title shot the second he gets back, because he didn't lose that fight to Josh Van. I know technically he lost. He lost his belt, but his arm fucking broke. So you give the champ another shot immediately afterwards. But then you got like Kyoji Horiguchi. Biggest win right now is Amir Albazi. You got Manil Kopp. Biggest win is Brandon Royval. And then you got Lenore Kavanagh. Biggest win, Brandon Moreno. I'd make the case that Brandon Moreno is the best win of that bunch. It's fucking crazy what he did. And the way he looked, too, was really freaking impressive. I know the last couple rounds weren't the most exciting. He got stuck up on the fence, and that's going to be a problem, especially with guys like, Tatsuro Taira and Alexander Pantoja, if he does keep progressing. But the way that he outboxed Brandon Moreno in those first two rounds, he was laying it on him. The calf kicks were disgusting. He looked as good as anybody. He looked as good as fucking anybody that I've seen in this division. And that leads you to what's next. What's next for Lenore Kavanagh? We kind of went through who is there. Ahead of him right now is Pantoja, Tatsuro Taira, Kyoji Horiguchi, Manel Kopp, Brandon Royval, assuming that he takes Brandon Moreno's place. How do you match this one up? I think you're playing with those Kyoji, Manel, and Brandon Royval. And for me, I did go ahead and pick Brandon Royval. For one reason and one reason only. I thought about Kyoji Horiguchi. I think that would be a great matchup too. But Kyoji Horiguchi and Manel Kopp fought in Rizin, and Kyoji beat him. So I think you have a built-in storyline there that I think the UFC might want to squeeze some juice out of. And Brandon Royval is high freaking level, dude. High level. You just got through Brandon Moreno. It's either you sit and wait, which I think is a bad idea, or you keep on fighting. And, I know Royval just got knocked out by Manel Kopp, but he still had him in the rankings. And I think you beat Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval back to back. That's a title shot. Those guys have been at the top of this division forever and have been turning back prospects. Don't forget, Brandon Royval beat Tatsuro Taira like 2 or 3 fights ago. Brandon Royval is a bad motherfucker, and this one's going to play out on the feet. Probably doesn't wrestle as much as Brandon Moreno tried to at the later end of those rounds. Brandon Royval, much more of a volume guy, taller, lengthier. We'll see how Lenore Kavanagh handles that. But god damn it, am I impressed with Lenore Kavanagh. God, that was insane what we witnessed. For Brandon Moreno, on the other hand, tough freaking luck, guy. Tough luck. You lose to a guy that was unranked and it just got KO'd. It's your second loss in a row. Back-to-back prospects, Tatsuro Taira and Lenore Kavanagh. My fight for him, he's ranked number 15 right now, but it's not because of that. It's because of who it is and the story that these guys have. And his name is Joseph Morales. I actually think this is a really, really interesting fight. Stylistically, he's good. I think Joseph Morales has been tearing shit up since re-entering the UFC, but that's kind of the key there. He had to re-enter the UFC. Like Brandon Moreno, he was cut from the UFC, entered tough, won tough, and then has worked his way back up into the rankings, getting 2 consecutive wins. One over, obviously Idris Alabib was his, or Alabib Idris was his tough finale. And then he also beat Mataush, not Mataush. Was it Nikolai? Could have been. Don't remember. Doesn't matter. But these guys have like identical stories. Joseph Morales, when he first entered the UFC, he had to fight. It was like Davis and Figueiredo and motherfuckers like that. He wasn't getting easy fights. He had like 2 tough fights. God, I should have prepared a little bit better. I'd tell you what it is. Let me look at him real quick. We'll figure this out because it actually is like super identical stories, which is what makes this fight so interesting. Let's get Joseph Morales Sure Dog real quick. All right, I'm going to take it back here. Sorry, my camera's going to be in the way. So, yeah, Match No. It was Match No. Aladid Idris, but lost to Davison Figueiredo, Eric Shelton, and then got cut from the UFC. A stint in Cage Warriors, a 1 fight in Uriah Faber's thing, and then got put into Tough. If we go to Brandon Moreno, on the other hand, let's go find Brando. I don't even think Brandon Moreno won Tough, but I think he just got re-signed from it. Maybe I'm wrong about that. God, he's having... this is how good Brandon Moreno is. That's why Lenore Kavanagh is so impressive. God, is he freaking good. So he fought Sergio Pettis and then Pantoja, got cut from the UFC, entered Tough, and then made his way back in and then turned into a champion. So I think just the story line there is great. These guys have had a very similar path. And for Brandon Moreno, I mean, we can look at the other guys, the other rankings in the UFC. It's like, what else do you do? Let's take a peek back at the rankings at flyweight, because this is going to be one of the biggest focuses of this card. All right, flyweight rankings are right next to my head here. Brandon Moreno, do you want to see him fight? He already fought Amir Albazi. I don't really care to see Asu Amabayev. That was supposed to be who was here, and Asu fell out. Tim Elliott, don't care. Alex Perez, you could do. He already fought and beat Steve Urseg. Tajir, don't care. Charles Johnson, don't care. Bruno Silva. Like, there's no good, like, from 7 to 14, there's nothing, there's no storylines there. I think you can make a storyline out of the Joseph Morales fight, and you're also giving him a chance to live the same life that Brandon Moreno did, in a sense. You know? Where he worked his way back into the UFC and is working his way back to a title fight. And Joseph Morales has looked fucking good. Again, back-to-back subs in the UFC. Won the Tough season, which is stacked, by the way. Seems like the flyweights coming out of Tough were the legit. And that's going to bring us back into here. We'll talk about one of the guys that he beat in Emanol Rodriguez later. But also beat Alabib Idris, who just beat O'Day Osborne. Like, the flyweights that came out of that Tough season were legit, and Joseph Morales won it all. So, really impressed. Really impressed with him. David Martinez beat Chito Vera. God damn it, Chito. I wanted Chito to win that one so freaking bad. Nothing against David Martinez. I just am sick of seeing Chito lose. But he did it again. You know, we heard the talk all week that he was going to turn up the volume. Just wasn't enough. And David Martinez, knew it coming into the fight. He's a hard guy to catch. He'll skate around that octagon just working kicks. And that's what he did. And Chito never found it. Chito never found it. But I don't think you need to rush David Martinez. I think the flyweight division the bantamweight division has enough going on at the top right now, with the likes of course, Petr Yan being the champ. Who knows if he's getting an immediate rematch with Merab Dvalishvili. You still got Umar Nurmagomedov, who picked up a win. Sean O'Malley, who picked up a win. I'm not ready to see David Martinez, Corey Sandhagen. I like Mario Batista called him out. I'd rather that or the Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen fight if I'm making fights for Corey. Song Yadong, I don't hate that. That's not a bad idea. You still got Aman Zahabi out there. But the one that I made for him was Davison Figueiredo. And in a certain way, this is almost like just a filler fight. David Martinez only has 4 fights in the UFC. I know he beat Rob Font and Chito Vera back-to-back, But I don't think we need to rush the guy all the way to the top. I don't think I saw anything out of David Martinez. I don't believe he's got a knockout yet that makes me go, we got to shoot this guy right up to the top. He's the best in the world. I think you give him a guy like Figueiredo. One, Davidson's a tough motherfucker, former champion. It's a great name to have on your resume. He turned back the likes of Montel Jackson, the last prospect that they tried to give him, and then lost to Umar Nurmagomedov. But also, it's like at a certain point, you feel like this is one of those. Does the old guard still have it? Does Deiveson Figueiredo deserve to be top 7 right now? I don't think he's better than Mario Batista, who's at 8. You know, we still got the likes of Peyton Talbot getting ready to rise up the rankings. Like, I think this is a great fight. I think it's the right fight to make. And if Deiveson wins, then you're goddamn right he deserves to be there because David Martinez is on one. But I just don't feel like you have to push him. Chito Vera. Life sucks from here on out for Chito Vera. It sucks because all these fights, he's got a big enough name where you're going to use him. You have to use him to get over prospects. And if we're looking at the back end of the division right now, we're looking at guys. We'll take it back to it real quick. My camera's right over it. Let me see if I can't get you out of the way. We're looking at guys like, Chito was 9, David Martinez was 10, so basically same spot. Peyton Talbot, Vinicius Oliveira. You could make a Rob Font fight. Who gives a shit? Respectfully. Kyler Phillips, I think, is on a lose. I think his last fight, Rob Font? Feels like he hasn't fought in forever. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But lost to Rob Font. And then Montel Jackson. I think what we do for Chito Vera is we just have fun. We have fun at his expense in a certain extent. And the name is Vinicius Oliveira. Just lost to Mario Batista. We know Mario Batista is a bad motherfucker. If you don't know that, you should know that. Mario Batista is a bad motherfucker. Vinicius was saying he came in with a broken arm. That's great and all. Sucks for you. But he's still a fucking madman, a psycho. I don't know what his ceiling is exactly. How much did that arm affect him? Was it really that? I don't know. But when you look at Chito Vera and you go, this guy can't, he's got to throw at some point. If you're standing across from Vinicius Oliveira and he's at his best doing what the fuck he does, you better be throwing because he's going to be in your face and all over your shit. So you got to throw something. I feel like somebody gets knocked out in that fight. And I know Chito's a hard guy to put out. Probably the hardest guy to put out. But this almost forces Chito to throw this fight. You can't stand across from Vinicius Oliveira, especially if you're not planning to wrestle, and not throw because he's going to be in your fucking face. I actually really like that fight. What's next for Chito Vera? Hate to say it, he is now your gatekeeper at the back end of the bantamweight rankings, and if he loses another one, he damn near might be out of it. Maybe not, because if I'm right about Kyler Phillips not fighting since Rob Font, him being at 14, at least Chito's fighting. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Who the fuck knows? Not me. Clearly. Bobby Green. God damn it, Bobby Green. Back at it, back in it, Bobby Green. Made Daniel Zellhuber look silly, and I'll admit, I was a DZ rider. I liked Daniel Zellhuber coming into the UFC, saw him on the Contender Series, a lengthy Mexican, cracking people, submitting people. But had an absolute war with Esteban Rivas. We talked about that earlier. But he looked slow. He looked flat. He looked stuck in the mud. And Bobby Green fucking did him dirty. Vintage Bobby Green, some would say. Fucking impressive out of Bobby Green. Now, the question is, what do you do with the guy? It feels like he's in one of those positions where he just kind of fights, You're not expecting Bobby Green to be a champion at any point in time. At least not anytime soon. I mean, he's 40 years old or whatever he is. I think 38, 39. I'm not saying he's in the same position as Chito where you're just using him to get names over, but that's kind of what you do because he's a big enough name where you go, fuck, let's give him somebody good. I think the UFC, especially in Mexico City, was trying to get Daniel Zellhuber over. It just didn't turn out like that. He got starched, and that's what Bobby Green can do to you. I know that he got head kicked by Shit. Fighting nerds, don't freaking tell me. I know this name. You know this name. You're screaming it at me, and we both know it. Just beat Rafael Fiziev. His name starts with an M, doesn't it? Mauricio Rufy. Holy shit. Head kick by Mauricio Rufy, but also turned back Jim Miller in a vintage fight at UFC 300. A bad motherfucker. A bad motherfucker. And again, we're going to use him to get one over. Or show that he's still fucking got it. If he can beat this guy, I think he earns his way into a bigger fight. All due respect to Daniel Zahuber, I don't think that did it. But Quillen Salkid, just outside of the top 15 rankings. Quillen Salkid last time out. I don't even remember what Quillen Salkid. He just had a really impressive performance. I'm blanking. Again, scream at me. I think I'm running out of steam here, folks. I don't remember shit. What did Quillen Salkid? Jamie Malarkey, yeah. Late notice Jamie Malarkey subbed his ass out. I can't remember who was supposed to be there. If anybody remembers who was supposed to be in that Quillen Salkid fight, it was Zhu Rong. Regardless, I think Nasrat Haqparast, who he head kicked into oblivion, was a bigger name than either of those guys. Bobby Green's a step up. Just right outside the top 15 might lead him right into that. Again, we're talking about a lightweight division that's got a ton of shit going on. As always, it's one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC. I'm not ready to give, and this is turning into more of like a what's next for Quillen Salkid than it is Bobby Green. But to be fair, that's the position that Bobby Green is in. Like, we're not expecting him to be a contender anytime soon. So like, you kind of have to do that. But like Fracion, Manuel Torres just got that. He's fighting on the UFC 327 card. You could give Quillen Salkid like Michael Chandler. I think that would play. But I think Michael Chandler and Bobby Green are about the same guy. You know? They create fun fights. So I think that would be a fun one. More for Quillen Salkid than Bobby Green. But shit, it's one of those guys where he could turn you back just like he did Daniel Zahuber. And for Imanol Rodriguez, I fucking love this kid. One to watch at flyweight, got knocked down in the first round, came back. But another one where I'm like, this one I hardly picked a fight for. He called for Joshua Van. Insane call out. I think there's some better fights, and I actually think Imanol Rodriguez should build up into a fight with Joseph Morales, which is who he lost to in the tough semifinals. I actually thought he won that fight, but regardless, I think he can build himself. I think we're gonna run those two guys into a crash course here pretty soon and kind of remake that fight. But I gave him Jose Acuna. Why? Because I don't think we're ready for top 15 yet. I mean, got the knockout, but he also got dropped bad. He's a young guy. He's 26 years old. We don't need to rush. Let's not rush. We're one fight into your UFC career. Let's not rush. Let's put a couple showcase fights on, tough fights. Joseph Acuna's no slouch, but if you are who you say you are, you should beat a guy like Joseph Acuna. But I like Imanol Rodriguez a lot. He's aggressive. He's fucking fast. He hit the Caleb Williams celly after that. After a backflip off the top of the cage, hit that Caleb Williams ice cold celly. The dude is fucking sick. But that's all I got for you. We got Alex Pereira heading up to heavyweight. We got a stacked UFC 327 in Miami. I mean stacked. Carlos Prates, Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley. And the next fight's made after UFC Mexico. Peace, love, and I'll see you on the flip.